Episode 5, MarcelloMania. We're back. Perfect time for it. College football started up. We talk college football. NFL is kicking off this week, and Tom Brady's on the quest to go undefeated. Mac Jones going to meet him in the Super Bowl. Let's see it. Go Pats. We talk NFL for you Washington football team fans. A lot of that as my guest. I used to be a former employee of there, so a little bit of insight there. We do a little bit of NFC East talk, some baseball talk as the wild card's winding down, as the season's winding down, and we even get a little esports. So tune in, enjoy. Let's go. All right, everyone. It's been a little bit of a hiatus. Work got busy, but we are back. MarcelloMania, another episode. And Dante is a guy I'm about to bring on. We worked together when we were at Wofford, but he is a big Washington football fan. And coming from Richmond, I have a lot of friends, so I'm hoping this might interest a lot of them as well. But Dante, I appreciate you, man. It's always fun to talk to you. This should be a good time.
Thank you for having me, Phil. Thank you for having me.
Now, we initially talked about this 3 weeks ago when it was Washington and the Patriots in the preseason game. Things got busy, and then now here we are kind of on the eve of the season. How much of the preseason did you catch? And, were you able to catch all 3 games? And then what were your kind of generic thoughts?
So I caught the entire Patriots game. And then the game against the Ravens, I was out of town for. And then the game prior to that against the Bengals, I was also out of town for that. But I got a clips of majority of the first half of the Bengals game, because that was the Week 2 game, which is kind of like the Week 3 preseason game from prior years. Basically, they're going to start the starters for the first half and see how they are. So I wanted to pay attention to that. And, it was like most offenses that they run in the preseason, very basic, very generic. They'll go for 4th and 5 just to see if their team can, progress down the field. But I was kind of encouraged with the throws that Fitzpatrick made. Him and Logan Thomas had a really strong connection in that second preseason game. Him and one of the rookies that we just signed, De'Ami Brown, they had multiple openings that they could have hit, and they would have been 50-yard gains. He overthrew him a little bit. But then there was a couple catches that he made down the stretch. I was like, okay, I see something. And the run blocking was something I was concerned about, because last year Gibson had a great year, but unless the holes were open enough for a Mack truck to fit in, they weren't getting more than 2-3 yards on those runs. So I was encouraged to see that there were holes that were forming consistently throughout the first half, not just every now and then when the defense is tired. Defense, they played like they did last year. Chase Young almost killed Cam Newton
He did.
in the preseason. We had a couple of, a lot of our linebackers are starting to play well. We our first round draft pick, Davis out of Kentucky, he showed that he could move and call a defense and react quickly. And it was encouraging. Like I said, it was against the Bengals, so not a high profile offense. They didn't play Burrow. Jamar Chase couldn't catch a cold. So it wasn't like we were facing a great offense to, kind of test the waters out. But like I said, they were in a basic offense as well. And for what I saw out of the starters, it wasn't too bad. Now, granted, obviously we tough road against us week 1 with the Chargers and Justin Herbert. But I'm not that scared. I'm not that worried about where is his team going to go. There's always questions with offense, and is Fitzpatrick going to be Fitzmagic or Fitztragic? How long is it going to last? So that is something I'm trying not to put in my head too much, because I don't want to overthink it. Because the fact that he's been in the league for this long, he has to be somewhat okay. We've seen other quarterbacks who number 1 draft pick and then they're gone in 3 seasons. Look at us with Dwayne Haskins. Now he's the 3rd string on the Steelers after 3 seasons in the league. So Fitzpatrick starting on all these teams, he has to have some credibility. It has to be somewhat decent. So I'm going there with optimism, and we'll see what happens.
I love it, man. And that's one of the questions I was going to ask you, because last year, you cannot argue with that front 7 of Washington. And that's how a lot of teams win games. That's a cornerstone. You got a lot of young guys, Montez Sweat, obviously Chase Young. There's a lot of depth there too. But I was curious, and as you just mentioned, it's only been 2-3 years since they addressed the quarterback position. When they had Haskins and took him in the first round a couple of years ago, were you surprised that they didn't try and get a younger guy, a rookie, because I always, the Patriots are sitting there and we can talk about Mac Jones, but I feel like unless you're going to be able to get an Aaron Rodgers or something, the ceiling is only so high with a lot of these veterans, even though we like Fitzmagic.
I mean, I didn't want to go the quarterback route. We weren't in the position being that we won the division. We were like 19th. And we had to give up a lot of capital to go up and get one of those quarterbacks like a Trevor Lawrence, like a Justin Fields. And we won the division at 7-9. So it's not like we're coming off a 12-4 year and we need one more piece to make us 15 and 15-2 now that is 17 weeks or 15.
It's gonna take some getting used to.
So we weren't one piece away. We weren't what the Minnesota Vikings thought they were when they got Kirk Cousins. We weren't that good. We weren't that good. Our offense we had a bunch of holes on like the offensive side. We only had one decent tight end. And Logan Thomas is great at catching the ball, but he can't block to save his life. And I mean our defense, yes, we had a great front seven. But those corners and safeties, I mean, Landon Collins went out with an injury, but he still really wasn't playing that well. And then we had Jimmy Moreland starting, who was a rookie or a second year, and now he's cut. He didn't even make the 53. And so we still needed help on that secondary, and we just needed more depth on like in the running back committee, and we needed more wide receivers outside of Terry McLaurin. We didn't have anybody last year. Everybody else, I didn't know, I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't know who Isaiah Wright was before he got to the team. You had like Terry, but I mean the rest of our wide receivers were mediocre at best. So you're talking defenses are like, okay, cool, let's double Terry. And then now they don't have anybody else to throw to but Logan Thomas or Gibson out of the backfield. And so now when you're at it, you're thinking about what we're gonna do for the draft. It's like, yes, we need a quarterback. There's no denying that.
Right.
But it's cheaper and easier to go and fill these other holes and, adding another linebacker who's faster, who's taller, who's more physical because Cole Holcomb's great, but he's not the fastest in the world. And then Bostic, he's aggressive, but sometimes, he's over aggressive where, he jumps around and then tight end runs right behind him or the running back runs around out of a curl route. And you're like, all right, cool. We need your head to be a little bit more in the game. And so we went out and got that in the first round. Cause you want to strengthen that defense as much as you can. Cause that's what you're relying on. We know that's our stronger side of the ball. Why not make it stronger? You look at Tampa Bay, they have a great offense, but that defense is what really shut down the Kansas City Chiefs and what won them the Super Bowl. Yes, they have an offense. They have Brady, they have Gronk, they have Godwin, they have Mike Evans, but that defense won them that Super Bowl. That defense stopped the Saints. That defense stopped the Packers. We didn't we didn't need to address the quarterback and risk all that capital when we can make our defense closer to what Tampa Bay has. And then you add William Jackson in there in the secondary. And then you get Collins back. Like you're making that defense stronger, and that's what's going to win championships. That's what's going to win games. We play in a division that's pretty terrible, but there's still a lot of playmakers in that division. Regardless if Dak plays or not, you still have Saquon coming back. Dallas still has a bunch of weapons in CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Ezekiel Elliott. The Giants, Evan Ingram's a wash, but they picked up Kyle Rudolph on their offense, and then the Eagles, Jalen Hurts. He didn't have a great season last year, but he didn't have an awful season. Right. And they just got Devontae Smith. So, there's weapons that we need to be able to cover. So it's not set in stone that, our defense was great last year, that we're going to dominate again. Like you got to keep feeding pieces, keep bringing in younger talent and cheaper talent. And we didn't need to go to quarterback route. I would have been upset because we would have had to give away somebody off that defensive line plus the draft pick. And we need to keep them together as long as we can, because eventually somebody's going to want a bigger contract and they're going to go somewhere else because we can't pay all of them what they deserve to be paid. So while we can keep them together, especially Sweat and Young together as the edge rushers, we couldn't afford to give up one of them. And we obviously were going to give up Chase, so that means Sweat was the next person in high demand. And Fitzpatrick's a 1-year deal. So it's a low risk, potentially high reward scenario if he actually plays well throughout the season. Would I want a young quarterback? Yeah, but Is it the time for that? Do we have the money and room and ability to give up somebody? No.
That's what makes the NFL so interesting. It's the balancing of the cap and it's timing when you have some of those guys in contracts. And, obviously Tom Brady has a leg up right now on Bill Belichick, but that's why he was so good, because it was always the contracts and maneuvering the cap space and keeping a lot of those people together. So it's going to be interesting to see, what the Pats do. I'll ask you a couple more questions and then we'll kind of get more generic NFL. I guess this would be a player question from Washington. Who do you expect to maybe have the biggest breakthrough? And I don't know if you want to answer that first, because I got one more question for you. I think y'all are probably going to win the division. I do think the division is going to be better. Who do you see as the biggest challenge in the NFC East?
Biggest challenge. It's hard for me not to say Dallas. Now that is very indicative of if Dak can play. Right. And I mean, we're all like, oh, Dak's coming back. They kept saying all the things that the fans wanted to hear. And then the first episode of Hard Knocks, he's like, yeah, actually, I know everybody thought I only had one surgery on my leg. I actually had two. And then now he's had to get MRI. And this was before he didn't even have any contact with anybody. He hadn't even went through a full series with people. He was just throwing normally and had to get an MRI. And I'm like, right. You don't go get an MRI for something that's small. Like a bruise or a strain, you don't go and get an MRI for that. So it had to be something serious for him to go get an MRI. And they're tweeting out don't worry, it's okay. And I'm like, are you saying that for the fans?
What are they gonna say? Yeah.
Or are you saying that for yourself to kind of more than you would like to know? It's more serious than you thought it was gonna be.
Right.
It's 8 days till week 1 against the Buccaneers. So even if he can play, you're going against a team that shut down, in my opinion, the best offense in the league, in the Kansas City Chiefs, and you want Dak to come off of 2 surgeries to play them the first week of the season. Yeah, if I'm a Dallas fan or in their corner, I don't want him to play, at least not that first week. Give him extra time. I can't remember who they play week 2, but give him just extra time. Yeah. It's one game. You got an extra game on the year, so you can make it up. You don't want to start the season 0-1, but I feel like they would have started that anyway, Dak playing or not. But you don't want to risk the rest of the season for one game just because it's the first game and you're trying to show your fans and America that Dak is back and blah blah. You can save him and have him come in week 4, week 5, and have him play the rest of the season more healthy. Give yourself a better chance to win the division, because we all know it's up for grabs. Rather than play him week 1, Devin White kills him, and then now you'd have a backup for the rest of the season like you did last year. But Dallas still has so many weapons on offense. It's hard to count them out, even with or without Dak. Like I said, Amari Cooper, Ezekiel Elliott, you got CeeDee Lamb, and then they just added Micah Parsons on defense, and they have I cannot think of
their wide receivers, as you mentioned, Amari, CeeDee. So you got Zeke. That O-line's been better.
And they just got healthy. So now Lyle Collins is back. And you're getting these Pro Bowl talent back on the offensive line. Now, granted, are they going to come off of those injuries the same? Who knows? Yeah. But they're back in the lineup, and that's better than starting a rookie or the understudies that they had last year. And then they got Micah Parsons on defense and added a couple other pieces on defense. And then they get a new defensive coordinator, who was the same defensive coordinator that was in Seattle when they had the Legion of Boom, and he had great defense everywhere he's gone, except for when he was coaching in Atlanta. But you add that in there, it's okay, this defense won't be. I wish it would be
right,
terrible, but with those pieces, you got to give them a little bit more credit. This defense may be stronger than last year. Now, are nobody saying they're going to be a top 5 defense in any stretch of the way? No, they're not. But they're going to be a little bit more competitive on that side. You're not going to rack up 500 yards against them, I don't think. So you have to watch out for Dallas on both sides of the ball. Philly's in shambles. They don't even know who their starting quarterback is going to be. They just got Gardner Minshew for a 6th-round pick. And their coach doesn't know who's going to keep saying, oh, we don't know who's the starter. I'm Jalen Hurts played basically the entire season last year for you. Yeah. And, I'm not saying he knows the offense, but he's played more than Gardner has. And I think he's just a better quarterback. Like he's more agile, better accuracy, longevity. And I'm like, oh, you don't know. I'm like, you have less than 2 weeks till the game, and you're like, still, I don't know. And I don't think bringing Gardner is going to change that. If you don't know who your starting quarterback is right now, then that's a problem. Because again, this guy doesn't know this offense. He's coming into this team like literally 3 days ago, and you're going to disrespect Jalen Hurts and say, hey, I know you've been here. Since you entered the league, but I don't know if you're ready for this. I just think that's sending mixed signals in the locker room, because all the players on the team love Jalen Hurts, think he's the guy, have confidence in him. You're saying, I don't know. Now you're pissing off the locker room, and they don't have faith in you because you can't make the obvious decision of making Jalen Hurts your starter. You make him the starter, if things go south, then you'll bring in Gardner and then see if he can play well and all that stuff. You don't go into the season like, I don't know, because now everybody's like, okay, do we even trust you? Do you even know football? And then the Giants Evan Ingram went down in the preseason game against the Patriots the other day. Right. I don't know if it's going to be a long-term injury, but with Saquon returning, I'm pretty sure he's going to start week 1. But I don't know how he's going to return. Not everybody is Adrian Peterson and can return from an ACL injury. If anybody can do it, it would be Saquon. But again, major things happen. And Daniel Jones is just a liability behind center. I mean, the preseason game, because we watched that in the restaurant that we were in, and most people I was with were either Patriots or Giants fans. And they were not pleased. I mean, he played an entire half in the third preseason game, but I was shocked by that, because I'm like, why is he playing? It's the last game. And especially after Dobbins went out in our game and was out for the season because he played in the third preseason game. I'm like, why is New York risking this? And then he made just some questionable, he threw a pick in the end zone, and the guy wasn't close. Like he was double covered, and he ended up throwing a great touchdown pass later on. I'm like, you're not even playing against the Patriots starters, man, and you're making concessions in the end zone. Like, I don't have confidence in you to go out and play well against week 1. Now, granted, he's beaten us every game he's played, so I'm not one to talk because he's lost to everybody but us. But they're just too many questions on the offensive side of the ball. Their offensive line is god awful, and like I said, we don't know how Saquon's going to be, and they're going to have to rely on him heavily because again, Daniel, you can't trust him. So I'm not really concerned about New York. It's mostly Dallas.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think ironically, it's not saying a ton, but I think every team in that division is probably gonna be a little better. Just if Dallas is healthy, they're the best roster. So this could be the biggest challenge to y'all. And I agree. I think you got to go with Hurts. I mean, I don't know if he's going to be, the next Lamar, but he's really smart with the ball, and he is athletic, and he seems to energize that locker room. But what concerns me about Philly is that first-year coach. You just don't know. Was it the right hire, or is he clueless? And then the Giants, I think they're going to be better too, but that O-line is questionable. So I agree with you a lot. I'm saying we as the Patriots, we have had a development in the quarterback situation recently. I want to ask your opinion. I'll say my opinion real quick, but as someone that's not a Patriots fan, I did not, I am a Patriots fan, obviously, but you are not. I did not expect Cam to get cut. Now, I think Mac Jones, while I'm not 100% sold on him, the preseason went a long way. Like when we drafted him, I think you had to take him at that spot. I was a little concerned, I don't know if that's the right word, hesitant, because at Alabama, you got the best offensive line. You always got stud running backs, and you had 2 first round. So it's like, was he good? Was he just a product of being at Bama? But he looked really, really good in the preseason, and it swayed me more and more. I just figured that, Belichick would give Cam 5 or 6 games. They would make up an injury, and then Mac Jones would come in like week 7. That said, I am excited that they're going all in with him. What's like your reaction as a non-Patriots fan?
Oh, yeah. I found out at work yesterday. So me being in North Carolina, basically surrounded by a bunch of Panthers fans. And Carolina Cam is like a god to most of them, especially like the fans who are like around my age who either were too young to appreciate the 2003 Super Bowl run,
Right.
or just again weren't watching football at that time. So Cam is like that's their best, their most treasured and their most prized possession memories of the Panthers. So they are all just like upset and like, how could you? Mac Jones isn't even that great, yada yada. Like they're upset for Cam, and he's not on their team. I was personally shocked because, kind of to piggyback off what you said, I thought Bill was gonna, have Cam come out there. I mean, again, he knows the offense more. He's a professional. He's been there for over a year now. He's former NFL MVP. He didn't have the best season last year. That's true. But I mean, again, it was his first year in the season. It was a crazy season in general with COVID protocols and like training camp being like basically non-existent, and like you're having to learn stuff over Zoom. Like that's nobody's ever do that in the history of the game. So like it was all a learning curve for everyone. And some teams are more judged than others. I mean, the Patriots they lost two of their franchises, the greatest players, especially the greatest player in their franchise history.
Yeah.
And so like they're trying to combat with that, and like they had a whole offense built around him, and now you have to change things up for Cam because he's a totally different kind of quarterback than Brady was. And I personally think the Patriots took the easy way out because they were like, instead of, again, trying to find an offense that fits our quarterback best, we're just going to let him go and use this quarterback that we know has a similar mindset to what we've run in the past. And I just think time will tell, but I personally think it's too soon because yes, he played well in the preseason. Again, he's playing against defenses who were like second stringers and third stringers for the most part. And again, running basic schemes. They're not going to show you their best blitz. They're not going to like put you in these tough situations. Because, I mean, it's preseason. Like they're like, we're not going to face them in the regular season. Like, why are we bringing out everything? Why are we going to make them better for the future? It's the Patriots we're just going to run something basic. And so, I mean, and you're playing in the AFC, and I mean, the Bills defense is nothing to look over. The Patriots always have a tough time playing at Miami. I mean,
week one.
So I'm like, I mean, the Jets are the Jets, so we're not worried about them. But it's not like he's playing in the NFC East for crying out loud.
Right.
I mean, he's like I don't know. I think it's a tough situation because, like you said, he was surrounded by first-round draft picks, everywhere in Alabama. And again, the Patriots receiving core is nowhere near what Alabama had. So you're not going to be able to depend on these receivers getting open and having that timing down when these regular season games start. Because, I mean, we saw with Cam, everybody's like, I mean, there was a lot to blame Cam on last year, but again, who did he have to throw to? Not many people, especially him coming from Carolina, where he had Steve Smith for a majority of his career. He had Musa Muhammad. He had
guys.
He had all these. He had DJ Moore. Like he had all these first round draft pick talents, and now he goes to New England and it's like, Well, you're gonna have to hold on to the ball a little bit longer. You got to make decisions a little bit, take a little bit longer with that. Whereas he didn't have to do that in Carolina, so it's adjustment period for everyone. And I think that the Patriots are taking the easy way out. They were like, if we're bad, then nobody's yelling at us about starting Mac Jones because they're gonna be like, oh, it's his rookie season, yada yada yada. He has nobody to throw to. It's easier for them to like go through this process. If you start Cam, everybody's gonna be on your back as soon as he has his first bad game. Is this the time to start Mac Jones? Is this the time to start Mac Jones? And then you throw him in there, and then it doesn't get any better. And then now it looks like you're screwed regardless. Whereas if you have this rookie play the entire season, it's a learning curve for everyone. People are going to be more lenient with him because he's a rookie. And again, he's not surrounded by the same talent that he had. But then by year 2 or year 3, if things haven't progressed, they'll give him the Daniel Jones treatment. But I mean,
that's an interesting take, but that's why I asked you, because I was curious. I see it from my perspective. I thought it was easier to start with the veteran, and then when you bring the guy in, because if you, like you said, if they start Mac Jones, which they are right off week 1, and it starts shaky, you don't really have anyone to turn back to. But if you had started Cam, but now that I'm looking at it, now that the move has happened, I know I would have been, as you said, 4 or 5 games in, we're 2-2, 2-3, whatever it is. I would have been like, why don't you put Mac in there? I think let's see what he got. Now the only optimistic thing from my end is I'm not wondering what the guy on the bench can do. It's, maybe we might drop a game, but at least we're going all in and we're going to see what we have. Ironically, I think that Miami matchup, you mentioned they always play the Patriots tough, but Miami is a really, really good secondary. So that's going to be a tough thing, whereas Cam is, at this point in his career is more of a runner. Mac Jones is not. I think overall the roster is going to be so much better for the Patriots. I mean, they had a league high 8 opt-outs last year, and they had the tight ends. They're going to need the tight ends because they have a lot of good, strong possession receivers, but they don't have that game changer like out there. They're more slot possession guys, can move the chains, which is important, but they're going to need Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry to produce in a big way. But I just think the roster is so much better. I just think it caught everyone off guard. I was in a meeting yesterday and then, I get out and my phone's just blowing up and I was like, whoa, okay, that happened. So I had to bring up the Patriots a little bit. And if you aren't sure, if you need a second to think, who do you think going into the season is going to win NFL MVP? Last year, obviously Rodgers had the big year. Whole crazy offseason. I mean, Mahomes is always a good pick. You got Josh Allen. I mean, it's a quarterback, right? I mean,
it's definitely gonna be a quarterback. That's not even. It's because again, we're not. I mean, because I think the closest non-quarterback that would be in consideration is Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
I mean, how many more 2,000-yard seasons can he have before they give it to him, if they're going to give it to him? So I think, quarterbacks are like the glamorous pick. They throw all the touchdowns. They have the numbers of because running backs 2,000 yards, they have maybe 15 touchdowns or 20 touchdowns. Like quarterbacks, you're up in there in the 48s, the 50 touchdowns. It just looks better on paper for you to have that. I wouldn't be surprised if Josh Allen won, to be honest with you. I mean, they added more weapons to Buffalo. I didn't think it was going to be possible, but they did. And I mean, the guy, he played his butt off last year, and I mean, Diggs and him are going to, that chemistry is getting better and better, and it's definitely much better than what Diggs had with Kirk. And I mean, Diggs still put up great numbers. He's in Minnesota, and Allen has the elements of all, he has the arm strength of Rodgers. He has the escapability of Pat Mahomes a little bit. I mean, he's obviously no Mahomes, but he's close. I mean, he's durable like Big Ben. So he has all these elements of former NFL MVPs. I mean, he plays in Buffalo, which I mean doesn't help because I mean it's not a
cold weather,
glamorous team to have the NFL MVP being from. But I think, I mean, hey, if they can win that division and actually dominate teams throughout the year, and it's not ooh, the Bills are going to skid by. I don't know. They can put up the numbers. I mean,
I think everyone, if you're asking the question right now, I think just everyone's going to say, you're starting a franchise, you're going to go with Mahomes. But if you have Josh Allen, you got to feel really good about your future in Buffalo. I mean, that is in the progress he made from year 1 to 2 to 3, unbelievable. So a lot of credit to him. This is probably not a shock to anyone that knows me. I think it's slam dunk Tom Brady. I mean, barring an injury, they brought everyone back. Last year, they were 11-5, but I think they were 7-5 at one point. And I just show you it takes time to get adjusted to the offense, have everyone on the same page. I just think they're going to roll. I mean, they're going to lose a couple games. I don't think they're going to run the table. It's just too hard, but bringing everyone back, I think he's going to dominate. I think they're going to go with it. And I do agree with you that in the playoffs, the defense of the Bucs stepped up. So I think they have a complete team. Obviously, again, you mentioned it, offense is going to get all the numbers, all the praise. But I think it's Brady. I mean, it's not a shocker. Again, people that know me, we'll do some predictions on here. And as I said before we got on here, I look back I've only had 4 episodes. I look back and some of my predictions are so off, or the opposite happened. I think it's the Red Sox. So what these are probably worth nothing. But AFC Championship game, NFC Championship game, who do you think is going to be in them? And then we'll pick who we think is going to win the Super Bowl. If you want to go first, second, you let me know.
All right, I'll start with AFC because I think that's the easier pick for me. NFC
Yep.
wins the top. I'm high on Cleveland.
Okay.
I regretted that when I was prepping. That just sounds like a crazy pick, but I mean, Cleveland hung in there with Kansas City last year. Their defense is nothing to play around with, and their offense was gelling. Especially now, what concerns me the most, and this will be the determining factor if Cleveland's going to go far or not, is the Odell situation.
Yeah.
I personally think they are better off without him.
Which is so strange, but I agree.
It is strange just to think about just how dynamic a player he is. I think that I'm not saying that they're going to get rid of him, but I don't think they need to focus. If they can play with him, but not focus on the offense being solely through him, then they're a dynamic offense. But if they're trying to force feed Odell to get him back into swing things because he's a diva and he missed a good amount of the season last year because of his injury, that's when I think it's going to be problems. Because, I mean, you have such a well-rounded offense, you can't just try to feed that one guy. And I think they're better. I mean, they have two great running backs and a bunch of talent on the wide receivers and tight end. And I'm like, you have such a well-rounded offense. Don't limit yourself. And so if they can come to understanding with the offense coordinators and Baker and be like, hey, Odell's great. If Odell's open, give him the ball.
Yeah.
But that doesn't need to be your number one target. That doesn't need to be your first read every single time. So if they can keep that well-roundedness of their offense, Cleveland, I wouldn't, because I personally think they're going to win the AFC North. Especially with Dobbins going down.
Yeah.
For Baltimore, I think it's Cleveland. I don't trust Pittsburgh. Yes, they went 11-0 last year.
Right.
But like their offense.
No, they're too down.
Yeah, the Steelers.
Baltimore's tough.
Yeah, so I'm going. I think Cleveland can make the AFC Championship game, and it's hard for me not to say. I want to say the Bills, but it's hard for me not to say Kansas City.
Yeah,
really hard. It's really hard. Man,
I feel the same way, and I'm trying not to be like biased because I don't want the Patriots to be like an AFC dynasty, and I like Mahomes as a player, but I don't want him winning all these rings. But Brady's playing, so it's all good. We don't have to worry about that. I was the same way. I really wanted to pick someone other than the Chiefs to at least make it there. I got to go with the Chiefs. I'm with you too. And I was juggling. I mean, Cleveland was really close to beating them last year, as you mentioned. But I was looking not to bypass Cleveland because I think they're a challenger. When you really think about it, you got a team like Baltimore, Cleveland, Buffalo. That's a pretty entertaining AFC side for the playoffs. I'm wrestling between the Titans and the Bills for that next spot. The Titans, their defense concerns me. They seem like they tried to address it more in the draft. Now they lose Jonnu Smith, but you get Julio Jones. So that is an upgrade. Now your tight ends are going to be better, but I mean, Brown and Julio Jones out there on the edge, that's going to be really tough. And obviously Derrick Henry, as you mentioned, down the middle. So I really wanted to go with them, but I think the Bills are going to be a better team. I think teams having to come to Buffalo is going to be no fun. So I'm going to go with Buffalo, Kansas City, and I'll jump ahead and predict the winner, and we can circle back. I'm going to say the Bills just because I don't know. I don't want to be too unbiased. I'm trying not to be all in on the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are going to be there, but I'm going to say the Bills are going to come out of the AFC. I'll do my NFC, then we'll throw it to you. NFC, I honestly think it's going to be a rematch. I think Green Bay, I would have thought they would have been off to a slow start, but their schedule is very forgiving early. And then I think it catches up with them as the season goes on. So I think they might rack up a lot of wins, put themselves in good position. But I also think Tampa Bay, with everyone they have coming back, they're only going to drop a couple games. So if Green Bay is 14-3, you got to do the math since there's that 17th game now. They still have to go on the road. And we saw how close that game was in Lambeau. If Ryan can somehow get that at home, then maybe they win. But I think it's going to be a rematch. This time it's going to be in Tampa Bay because I said the Patriots. Bucks aren't going to start off 7-5 again. I just don't see that, barring Brady not playing. So I'm gonna go rematch this time in Tampa, and I think it's gonna be, I'll say, Bills and Tom Brady rematch with the Bucks in the Super Bowl. What do you think the NFC side of things?
As great minds think alike. I mean, it's hard not to. I mean, obviously, I think nobody's disregarding Tampa, and everybody's gonna have Tampa in the NFC Championship game.
Right.
It was hard. I was thinking about the Rams over Green Bay. I mean, because when you bring in Matt Stafford, I mean, that offense I think gets better. I think he's definitely better than Jared Goff, and I think he's gonna make Sean McVay. He's more of a fit for McVay's offense than Jared Goff was. And then that defense is just phenomenal with Ramsey and Aaron Donald. It's hard. I'm gonna go with the Rams. I'm gonna go Rams. Bucks. Obviously like Bucks being number 1 seed. I'm going Rams Bucks. And you know what? I'm doing this because, and I mean, I don't know. The Bucks are great, but I don't know. They didn't face a defense in the playoffs like the Rams. Our defense was the closest one to it, and we gave them a run for their money. It was a 2-point game in the third quarter, and I think the Rams
game they had,
Rams defense is the most similar to ours, and just comparing off of last year's playoffs to now. Now, obviously, we're barring any injuries for any team. I think the Rams, with the offense that they have, plus that defense, it will give Brady fits. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm gonna go Rams. Rams beat the Bucks.
So I like it, man. I mean, I just like something a little bit different. I mean, we'll look back and see how right or wrong we were. So Super Bowl, I got Buffalo and I got Tampa. I mean, I think Brady's he's gonna get there, and this one I'm actually gonna go Buffalo. I think if Buffalo gets there, it's just, even though they're right there, it's hard to run it back. So I'll surprise some people and go Buffalo in the championship or in the Super Bowl. But I mean, no one would be surprised if Brady raises another one. So that's gonna be my official pick. What do you think? Because you have the Rams.
I have Rams and Chiefs. Again, it's something about that defense. I mean, I'm very pro on defenses, and like I said, we saw what Tampa did to Kansas City last year. I think the Rams can do equal damage, and again, they have an offense that is close enough to Kansas City that they can compete offensively, and even if it's like a even game, they have a couple of playmakers that can bust things open. I'm gonna go Rams. Trying to change it up, but we don't need. Hopefully, there's not a repeat of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and it very well could be.
Very well, it could.
Because obviously you're never going to count Tampa. You're never going to count Mahomes. You got Kyle Long came out of retirement on the O-line. They got Joe Tooney from the Patriots, so they got some really good guards all of a sudden. So Mahomes should have some better protection in front of him. All the ones that they have, but that's what I juggle with. Like when I'm making a prediction, like, all right, this is what I think. But am I being too biased? So we'll look back at this in February, and we'll see again how right or wrong, maybe somewhere in the middle, both of us are. Dante, I mean, if people haven't called on me, and you could just keep going talking about.
Yeah, you were like, originally this is going to be like 20 minutes, and I'm like, are you sure about that?
Hey, man, just tee it up and get you rolling. Always fun to talk to you. We'll definitely get you on a future episode. Anytime I need some Washington insiders, hopefully my friends will enjoy. They love the WFT, the team with a later name.
Yes, hopefully. God, I'm tired of this WFT crap. I swear.
All right, Dante, man, I appreciate it.
Peace out, Phil. Thanks for having me.
MarcelloMania, another episode. Some people may know this guest as the Junkyard Dog, but it is Kyle Joel. Kyle, what's up, man? How you doing?
What's up? How are you?
College football just kicked off, and you're a big Penn State guy. You're an alum, so I wanted to get your opinion on the opener versus Wisconsin. I think it was scoreless at halftime. Penn State had like 1 rush yards. Give me your thoughts after the first half? We'll start with that.
Well, there's a lot to unwind there. So my initial thoughts, like honestly, Penn State looked pretty good for the first half. Like I know you never know. The first week of college football is so hard because like it just goes based off your last year, who's returning, who's not returning. So it's really hard to tell a gauge on the rankings. Like this week, you look at the rank, the AP top 25, I guarantee in 3 weeks from now, half those teams will only be in there, or there'll be teams that weren't in there with the top of the leaderboard. Because that's just how college football works, is you never know who's going to be good, who's going to be bad. So, but right out the gate, I don't think Penn State's ever opened up with, at least to my knowledge, a Power 5 opponent. Like it's always been cupcakes, like some MAC school, some WAC school. So we really put them to the test week 1. So, I mean, I actually personally, I like that because a lot of times teams will come out and get stagnant. They'll play these cupcakes and they'll put up 60 points and they won't play the full game. And, they'll go into a real game and then they won't be ready for it. So before we all get into the actual game, I just wanted to point that stuff out because it's, I think it's something that to know, at least Big Ten football, because we never play big opponents week 1. But, so the first half going into it, like, my thoughts were the defense was really strong. I kind of expected that because Penn State's always been good defensively. Like we were able to hang with just about anybody. The only reason that we fall behind versus like Ohio State and versus like if we were even in the bowl game, sometimes you get a big game, but it's always because the defense is just on the field for too long. Like they could only do so much. And like Penn State's offense is what's always been kind of like their hiccup in a way. Currently, I think it's the quarterback issue. Like Sean Clifford's given us, this is his 3rd year. And I'm kind of at the point where I think he is what he is. So he just needs to hit the gimme throws. Like right now he's not hitting the gimme throws, which is like, that's the staple of every good college football team. Like your quarterback, he's going to hit the gimme throws, like the 3rd and 10s on the out route, or the guys run down the field, streaking down the field, he's going to hit that guy. You see that with Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson. They always hit their guy when they need to. And I think Sean Clifford has to work on that. I mean, I'm not ready to rule him out. My question as a fan is there a competition going on? Because from what we've seen, if he plays like that again, I don't know how we could go forward with him as a QB if we don't have a better option. Because realistically, if he played the game, if he just hit the throws he should have hit, Penn State should have won by probably about 30 points. Should have been like a 34, 10 game, to be honest. He missed a lot of throws. And one thing that I was surprised at with Penn State was for sure the running game. I thought the running game would be a lot better because they've got 2 really good backs. The offensive line is pretty young in terms of playing time experience. A lot of the guys graduated last year. However, I just thought they'd be able to run the ball more because that's always been the strong suit for the last couple of years. Even Sean Clifford doing some kind of drop play, or he could run the ball really well. So that's something that I'd like to see more going forward. But it just goes to show, I think Wisconsin has a really good defense as well. That's probably why it was scoreless at halftime. Like both teams have strong defenses. But at the end of the day, I think Penn State's defense was what won them the game. Like their 2 safeties, one was a preseason All-American, I believe, and the other one, they're both seniors, but they really stepped up. They had the 2 picks at the end of the game. And their linebacker, Ellis Brooks, he's a monster. I think he's going to be a draft pick. And then they get this transfer from Temple. I don't remember the names of the most. Give me a second to look them up because they're all new. So Penn State did this thing this year where they didn't release a depth chart because they didn't want to have people talking about it. I don't even know why. So I forget their
Seems like a Bill Belichick move.
Yeah, seriously. I guess James Franklin thinks he's a Bill Belichick guy.
No, you're right
about the defensive end.
I mean, it's a good matchup in week 1, and then other than that completely blown coverage for the touchdown.
Right.
It was a Big Ten battle.
3 or 4 times was Jahan Dotson. He was the receiver. He's like our best receiver. He was open 3 or 4 times down the field that Clifford missed. He hit him once, and then the second time he underthrew him. I don't know if you were watching the game at all, but he underthrew him. Which you got to hit those passes. That's what I'm talking about. Like the gimme throws. It's one thing, if he's well covered, like the best quarterbacks will hit the best throws, but you just got to hit the gimme throws. And that's what Clifford's got to step up.
So after watching the game, you obviously got the win. It was kind of down to the wire. What kind of position do you feel good about? Whether it's the running game, obviously the defense, but is there a position that you were worried about going into the game you feel a little bit better about after seeing the results?
The defense, to be honest. We lost Micah Parsons last year. He actually opted out in 2020 just because of COVID, and he was going to be a top 5 draft pick, or top 10 draft pick. So he opted out. So we weren't sure how our linebackers were going to be and how the defensive line was going to be. So I think the defense is most surprising to me. Like I said earlier, they're always been solid. So I was never like worried that Wisconsin was going to put up a huge game, almost like a Big 12 game. I knew it was going to be a close game the whole time.
Right.
But as I was saying before, they got this transfer from Temple. His name's Arnold. I think it's Bikiti. I don't exactly know how to pronounce it. But he came over from Temple and he had a huge game. And like that's our defensive end. He's a grad transfer. So last year we didn't know we'd have the void to fill over there at defensive end, but he came in and he filled in great. Like he's rushing the passer the entire, like pretty much the whole game, like getting to the quarterback. Graham Mertz, like he didn't have a good game, and that was because of the pressure. And he was supposed to be a highly touted quarterback. He's a 4-star recruit. I think it was Wisconsin's highest recruited quarterback of all, like ever since they started doing the rankings. So to hold him at bay was pretty good. I think that was pretty good from the defense.
Obviously in the Big Ten, everyone's going to look at Ohio State. And this week we could get some answers, but as you said, early in college football, and it's sort of like the NFL, like 8 weeks from now, we're probably going to look at a lot of teams different. I know Iowa and Iowa State's a big matchup this weekend.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest slate, but who do you see outside of Ohio State as maybe the biggest challenge in conference?
I think it's Iowa for sure. Like that's just, I think they're really good. I actually think they're ranked 10th right now. But obviously they have a big test this week going into, I think it's in Iowa State, right?
Iowa State, I believe so.
Yeah. So that's going to be a big test for them, but I think they're one of the better teams. They're always good. And like the Big Ten East, besides Penn State and Notre Dame, or not, I want to say Notre Dame for Ohio State, it doesn't seem like it's going to be too strong, like compared to usually. I mean, Michigan played well their first week, but I feel like Michigan has improved themselves over the last 4 or 5 years that they're going to be really a threat. But Iowa from the West they're looking pretty good, and I think they're going to they might have that side of the division before we even played 7 or 8 games, just because they got a pretty good schedule. I think they're coming to Happy Valley. I'm not sure what day that is, but I know Penn State plays them. That's going to be their toughest test without a doubt, up until the Ohio State game. Well, they play Ohio State on Halloween, so I think October is going to be a pretty rough month because they got Iowa and Ohio State in the same month. But
I like it. Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Just how we see how a lot of these games unfold, and sort of Clemson, Georgia. I mean, Clemson's not out of it by any means, but against these top teams, you have to at least show well and be in the game. And
exactly.
Loss at the end of the year. We're going to shift gears a little bit because you are a big baseball guy. So hopefully your boys, Penn State, can keep up their traditions at the Iron Line established there. We all know that. But baseball-wise, we're coming down a little bit to the last couple of weeks. The wild cards are getting interesting. My Red Sox, they'll win a few games and then the bullpen will just go to absolute crap and they'll blow games. So the wild card mix is interesting. Right now, it looks like there could be 3 AL East teams, and NL West could get 3 teams in. What are just your general thoughts about those last couple of spots in the wild card? Because, I mean, Houston's got it locked up. It looks like the Tampa Bay Rays are running away with it. So some of those clear cut.
To be honest, it might be a 4-team race at the AL East because Toronto is really good. Like
they're right there.
I mean, they're just like a pitcher away from being right there. I think they just give up too many runs. Like they have a ton of runs scored, almost one of the highest in the division. I'm pretty sure last time I checked, at least. And they have like obviously those young superstars with Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, Nate Pearson. I think he's pitching for them too. They have so many good players, so they're a team that could come out of nowhere in September, I think. But it really is going to be hard to take down, the Yankees or the Red Sox. I know the Red Sox have been slipping up a little bit, but they seem to have. I feel like they have the talent over the Athletics at least to make the run deeper. And it's all up to the Yankees. Like if they keep playing what they're playing, I just don't see how the Yankees are going to leave that wild card spot. But yeah, if the Red Sox clean their bullpen, and get back to their winning ways like they were earlier in the year, I feel like they had the best shot. And Oakland's kind of fallen off with the wild card. They have good players. It's just they're losing these tough games. That's Star Marte trade pickup for them at the deadline was huge. I think he leads the league in stolen bases. I'm not sure he's pretty high in OBP too. So I know he's playing really well for them. But I do think it's going to end up being Yankees Red Sox, which will make for a really exciting wild card game. So that should be exciting. And like you said, the Rays, like nobody's going to catch them.
So. Yeah. I think the Red Sox, as you mentioned, they have a lot of talent. It just seems ever since the trade deadline when it seemed like they were going to get Rizzo and they didn't. I don't know.
Right. Schwarber's a pretty good pickup, though.
Yeah, no, I like Schwarber, but Rizzo's got better defense, and he was healthy. They had to because he was kind of on the IL, working his way back. I don't know. The bullpen's been the biggest issue. I mean, they got Sale back. His attitude, his mentality, he brings a lot to that team. I think it's a little bit infectious. So I think they're better, but their bullpen has just blown so many games, and the Rays are a good team. So I really think the Rays are going to be tough. I think the Astros are going to be tough in the American League. And as you mentioned, Millersville alum, Toronto, Tim Mesa, and then you got Chas McCormick out there on the A's. So you got a couple Millersville guys.
Right, I forgot that Chas McCormick was on the A's.
Yeah, man. He's so McCormick's out there with the Stros. He gets in a lot. So, and Mesa's been with the Blue Jays for a while. In the NL, it's going to be interesting. I don't know. I'm not a Giants fan, super close. So I didn't know, like, the Red Sox were kind of a surprise this year, and then all of a sudden they were there. The Giants seems like every few years this is just what they do. It's kind of a two-team race out there, and all of a sudden the Padres could be that really fun team that sneaks in the postseason. But I really want the Padres to be in because I can't stand Manny Machado, but I love Tatis and I love the attitude of that team, and that's exciting postseason baseball with them in the mix.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the NL West is stacked. Like, nobody thought the Giants coming in this year were going to be there. It's kind of crazy because it's a bunch of, like, veteran players that have been in the league a long time. They're kind of on their way out. They're having this amazing year, like Evan Longoria, Brandon Crawford, Buster Posey. Like, they're still producing at a high level. Nobody thought they're going to produce at that kind of level this year. So for them to be in, I think they're the best record of baseball. For them to even be in that position is kind of crazy. I mean, they've had some breaks. I think they won a lot of one-run ball games. But to me, that's got to be the biggest standout from the NL West, at least, because everyone coming in here thought, the Padres and the Dodgers are going to be this neck and neck huge race. And like you said earlier, the Padres kind of fall off. They have all these young, exciting players, but they're just not winning ball games right now. So I don't even know if they're going to, sneak in or not. Because you got the Reds that are just creeping up. The Reds they're coming.
The Reds
are playing really good baseball right now. Yeah,
the Reds are right there. The Dodgers are obviously going to win, but yeah, who knows? And your Phillies aren't completely out of it. I know it's kind of
no, they're not, but they're the same Phillies team they've always been. At least for the last couple of years, like they have bullpen problems as well. They're like the Red Sox, like they just can never figure out the bullpen. But it's kind of crazy. You might see. I mean, this is kind of an outside chance, but they're in the mix. If you see Zach Wheeler and Bryce Harper take home the Cy Young and MVP, that'd be something crazy if they don't even make the playoffs. Like those two players, Bryce Harper's leading the league in OB on base plus slugging. OPS, I think it is that, but like that's he's playing the best baseball he's played in his whole career, probably next to 2015 when he won the MVP. But they just need better pitching. Like Aaron Nola he's not been pitching as well lately as he has in the past. But Zach Wheeler's been money. So like it's going to come down to basically are the Braves going to choke or are they just going to hold on? They have a lot of injuries, the Braves. So who knows? You never know. Like they lost, Robert Acuna Jr., best player. They lost, Marcell Ozuna, but obviously he did some horrible things, so he shouldn't be in the league. So it's going to be interesting to see. And I think Mike Soroka's out too, right? Did he get injured?
Yeah, they've definitely had the injury bug. And when Acuna went down, I didn't think the division was the strongest, but I thought that was it for the Braves. So
right
to them for battling and hanging around. And I'm glad you mentioned the NL MVP. We were talking a little bit before in the American League. I mean, it's got to be one guy in terms of MVP in the AL, correct?
Yeah, AL for sure. I mean, Shohei Ohtani, how do you not pick him? He's doing things that haven't been done since Babe Ruth, which, baseball wasn't even the same back then. It was just a bunch of guys coming home from construction jobs and playing baseball at the end of the day. So for him to be pitching, 100 miles an hour, like 100 mile fastballs, 2.9 something ERA, and just being able to hit 40 something home runs, that's something incredible. And I don't know how long-term sustainable it is for him to pitch and hit because, it takes a huge toll on your body. But for right now, I mean, it's amazing to watch. Like if even like the non-diehard baseball fans, if you're not watching Shohei Ohtani play, then you're missing out because it's once in a lifetime, I think. Not that people don't have the talent to do that. It's just to actually show up and do it.
Right.
It's another thing. Because I'm sure, every star player in high school pitches and hits, like are coming up. Like even college has a lot of hit pitchers and hitters, but usually once you get to the major, just the pros, they kind of assign you to where you're at, and that's it. But this guy coming over is just chucking hundos and hitting bombs. Like, I mean, how does he not win MVP? He's even in the
That
running
seems
for
like
Cy Young award. He's an outside chance. He's probably not going to get Cy Young, but I mean, he's going to get some votes for sure.
that seems like a spit and chicklets quote, but for baseball,
yeah, like
throw on
chucking
a
nuts.
shirt there. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, in our lifetimes, we've never seen anything like it, and I don't know. I'm like you. I think we're so programmed now where instead of enjoying it, it's like, how long can you do it? And like,
Right.
worry about the future. It would be cool though, because I mean, long term, why can't he come out in a bullpen role or like, so I don't know. It's gonna be interesting.
Right.
Whole career unfold. I hope he keeps some aspect of pitching, but as you mentioned, man, if you're a baseball fan, you should watch him. I know we have the East Coast bias, but he's a great reason to watch some late games on
Right.
the East Coast out there in Anaheim. But we're gonna shift gears a little bit, and you might actually have some questions for me because this is a topic I'm very surface level on. You're a big esports,
Right.
so I'm just, what are you playing these days, and what are you best at right now? Because I know you're big in the esports, and you got recently back into it the last couple of years.
Right. Yeah. So esports has really taken off, I'm sure, as you know, and most people have heard of Twitch and YouTube, like gaming and all that kind of stuff. It's really taken off in the last probably like 3 or 4 years, to the point now where like high school, there's high school teams, there's college teams, like they're doing these esports leagues and stuff like that. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm currently playing Warzone, which is a Call of Duty game. I started to getting competitive with it when Fortnite came out. That's when I started really gaming and streaming and all that kind of stuff. But the last year and a half has been Fortnite. I mean, it's been Warzone. So, I mean, there's a lot of money. There's like, I played in a $200,000 tournament earlier in the year. There's just a lot of different opportunities to make money in this field, which is crazy. You're looking at me like,
Yeah,
like, what?
that's awesome.
It's video games. But so like as somebody who doesn't really follow very much, like what's your biggest question when you hear, oh, somebody's a gamer streamer? Like what kind of questions do you have? Because I feel like this is going to help a lot of your listeners understand too, that may not be so in depth to into the gaming community.
Yeah, I mean, because I grew up and I had video games. I played them a ton, but for me, it was mostly sports game. So when it comes to Warzone and the Fortnite and things like that, like, yeah, I played similar from time to time, but like, I'll just start out with a tournament or a couple tournaments you've been in. Like, just what's the setup? How many entrants are you looking at? How do you have to qualify?
Right. So we'll stick to Warzone just because like that's the game I've been playing. So recently I haven't been playing competitively because there's a cheater problem in the game, which is like somebody downloads hacks and they go in the game and it makes it unfair. But that's a whole separate conversation, not for right now. It's not
We would never.
basic level.
We would never.
Right. So I've kind of taken a break, but when I was competing regularly, so there's different types of formats. So there's kill race formats, which is basically it's a battle royale. So you drop in as 150 players, last team standing wins. And these kill race formats, there was timed kill races, which is like 4 hours, play as many games as you can, best 3 games with your highest kill count and best finish. You count those and then they add up to the points at the end of the way. And there's also, so there's the different game modes. There's quads, which is teams of 4. There's trios, teams of 3, duos, solos, obviously. And quads, there's this 2v2 killer. So you have 4 players and you'll have a teammate and then you'll have 2 other opponents, but they're on your team. And then you two, like your teammate and you have to try to get more kills than they do in one game. And then the winner will move on. And then there's also custom tournaments, which is basically all known players going to one game together and then the winner of that. The one that I played in most recently was a custom tournament. So you had to qualify. And it's funny because we went over those different ways of competition. So how you had to qualify was one of those time kill races. And basically to finish top 50 out of everybody who applied. Top 50 went to a custom tournament, which I just said. So top 50 teams, so it makes it 150 people. They need to place top 25 and that to qualify for the grand finals, which was Twitch Rivals, which is the biggest tournament on Twitch's platform. So we played in Twitch Rivals and we competed against some of the best players in the world. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Nick Merckx or Tim the Tat Man, if you've ever heard of them.
I know the big names.
They were all in this tournament. So it was a pretty big deal. So that's kind of how the competition scene works. But a lot of gaming too is connections. It's like who you know, how do you like. It's the Wild West. I was saying it's the Wild West because there's no structure to it. It's more so like, oh, if you're a Twitch streamer, but you gotta like, there's no like written path. Like you don't get promoted. It's just like you just gotta meet people and work with people and find people and play with people. And obviously social media is a huge aspect of that, like putting out clips and putting out content and all that kind of stuff. But there's the people that compete regularly, like every tournament's at least like 50 grand. So there's like 150 people that, compete pretty regularly. I'm not one of them, but there's a lot of people that do that. It's crazy. The money in the game is crazy. Like there's like 200, 300,000 people watching these tournaments at any given time. And, if you're in the media, like, that 300,000 people watching something like that's a really huge deal. So it's pretty neat aspect. A new thing, I guess you couldn't really do back when we were growing up. And you said sports games, like I used to play all the sports games too. And I still do play them from time to time, but I don't play them. Like that's not what I do for like competitively or anything like that.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
I'd say, yeah, like NBA 2K and like FIFA, there's some like competitions and stuff, but they're a lot smaller than the games like Call of Duty and Fortnite and Apex Legends and stuff like that.
Okay. Now are there any games that you're waiting on that are supposed to come out soon that you'll jump on? That'll be something you try and get online?
Yeah. So I'm sure as people like that are our age, they're going to like, this is going to take them through what's the word I'm looking for? Nostalgia, because Halo's coming out with a new game this year. And Halo,
that was my only guess when you said
if you
that.
didn't play Halo, if you didn't play Halo growing up, then you weren't playing games. But so there's a new Halo dropping this year. I think it's the first time I don't even know when the last Halo, maybe 2014 is the last Halo, but it's supposed to be really exciting. It's on cross-platform, so it's not just on Xbox. You can play it on PC as well. A lot of people are looking forward to that. That's gonna be the big one this year, I think. There's also a new Call of Duty coming out, Call of Duty Vanguard, which is based in World War II era. So the last one that came out was Black Ops, which is like the Cold War, or not. I meant to say the last one was Cold War, which is it's in that time period. So it's going to be exciting when they're supposed to have an anti-cheat. So remember I was talking about that cheating problem? Well, hopefully once this new comes out, they'll have an anti-cheat, which is basically a program that's built in the game so you can't go into their files and edit the game files, which is what people are doing. And then there's also Battlefield. I don't know if you're familiar with that game. That's like a third tier of the top shooter games franchises that we've kind of grown up with since we're both 30, 31 years old.
Right.
And those three games, all of them, like, that's going to hit a lot of people who are going to be out gaming this year, just this fall. They all come out in the fall, like October, November.
Yeah.
So everybody's going to be getting those new games. And I'm pretty excited because it's been with the pandemic, not a lot of games come out because there's been people have been working from home, everybody's been worried, so there hasn't been much new content in the last year. So I'm excited, and I'm sure other gaming fans are definitely really excited too.
I get another question. If you as you're advancing in some of these tournaments, you get maybe towards the final round, do you get drug tested like Turtle did in Entourage when he was playing?
So actually, I don't know if you've heard of the COD League, the COD Pro League, which is basically, it's different than what I play. I play Warzone. They play like the multiplayer aspect of COD.
Yeah.
But they're testing now for Adderall because some people getting banged for Adderall. I mean,
that's crazy.
I've never done it, so I don't know what it's like, but I would imagine.
You didn't really have to answer it. I just wanted to plug
like
Entourage. Yeah. Well, hey, I appreciate this, man. It's always good to talk to you, especially, Penn State, they're starting off. Baseball, your stuff. Gaming is something I don't know a whole lot about, so maybe, as you said, maybe this will teach some of the people listening, watching that don't know about esports. So, Kyle, man,
exactly.
We'll do it again.
Yeah, let's do it again for sure.